Hello, my little goblins. We're back at it again, and this time we're going to be going over the meta and we're making a tier list. I know we did this a few months ago, but guess what? Things have changed. We got some new cards. Last time I did it, we didn't even have Pearly, so yeah, let's go over it. First things first, I just want to say this tier list is not going to be done like, you know how Master Duel Meta has their tier list done on like meta or tournament data? That data can be skewed a little bit. I mean, it's definitely important. So definitely it's not going off of that. It's just going off of what I personally think is powerful in the meta and what I personally think is powerful to climb on ladder to hit Master 1. I'm not talking about any tournament decks because tournaments change from tournament to tournament depending on what your opponents are playing. So if a large field is bringing cash, having a deck that's good into cash would probably prove advantageous, right? So we're not going to do it off of tournament data. We're doing it off of just climbing in Master Duel. So first things first, we got Branded. I'm going to put Branded tier 3. I'm going to put it relatively low on the tier 3 because I personally think this deck is not the greatest right now. Honestly, it could honestly be Rat League, which is just Rogue. If you guys want to know what Rat League is, just Rogue. This deck I actually think could be Rat League. Yes, they do a good combo, but cash is everywhere right now. And if people start playing D-Shifter more, people aren't really playing D-Shifter because you're playing Cash Mirror so often. It's kind of a redundant card. And even before then, if they snipe with Rise Heart, if they snipe your Branded Fusion, like what does this deck even do? So yeah, I'm gonna put this either bottom tier 3 or Rat League. It's high Rat League though. It's pretty high in the Rat League. Still an okay deck though. Heroes has a good OTK potential. So if you're like really, and the thing is, I think it's actually pretty good going first or second, but it does suffer the same issues that Branded has right now, where they get absolutely turbo stomped by a banishing, like a Macrocosmos effect. Like they can't do like half of their combos with that. So I'm gonna put this on the top of Rat League. This could technically be like bottom tier 3 because they do have they do actually do pretty good board. But I can't imagine that this is even better than Branded. It's probably around the same tier to be honest. But they get punished way too hard by Cash, and that's a problem because a lot of people are playing Cash. And if not playing Cash, they're playing like Cash with something else, and they still go into the Right Heart combo. So yeah, kind of a yikes. With Unicorn at 3, I'm going to put this at tier 1. Arguably, it might be borderline, like 0.5, but I'm going to put at tier 1. I think it's a really, really solid tier 1 deck. I don't even have any issues with the deck. Like, the deck's just really, really good. Everything's like at 3 besides the field spell. The field spell not being at 3, though, is kind of annoying, and we don't have terraforming. And when I say annoying, I mean, I'm barely play Cash to begin with because I have to make all these other deck profiles. So I think I'm pretty happy that it's not like that. But the deck's still really, really solid. And guess what? Even if they end on like Fenrir Unicorn, like that's still you still have stuff on the board. Like it still has interrupts. Like it's not like when you would play, let's say, Tier Limit Rhino Heart and your opponent interrupts it and then you just pass. You know what I mean? And not to say this is better than Tier Limits, because Tier Limits in the heyday was definitely way better than this deck, or at least like a decent amount better, but it's still like really, really good, is what I'm saying. Really strong. Sky Striker. Surprising, I actually think this is like maybe tier 2.5, or really low tier 2, high tier 3. Sky Striker feels insane. With the meta being like not really setting up any negates anymore, it's really hard to say this deck is not like really strong right now. Triple Tactics Thrust was a huge add. This deck breaks the board super, super easily. I went from I climbed the D20 on the Duelist Cup like super, super easily with this deck, and it just feels good into like every matchup. The only time this deck I feel like struggles is if your opponent forced you to go first, because you're gonna get absolutely stomped on because your end board's like Shizuku Pass. But if you're playing a good, like, going second variant of this deck, man, you're going to smoke everyone. Or you're not going to, maybe not smoke everyone, but you're going to have a really good time. And they don't even have that big, because you're playing Herald of the Abyss now in the deck. So those big invincible boss monsters like Pearly like aren't even that big of an issue anymore, as long as you open thrust, because you can actually handle it now. It's kind of nice. So I feel confident putting it at tier 3, maybe tier like end of tier 2, but probably high tier 3. Pearly, I'm gonna put pure Pearly. It's possibly tier 2, but it's tier 1. Like they have every card at like 3. It's really hard to say this isn't tier 1, and this deck might just be this deck's gonna stay tier 1 unless if the new support comes out and they don't hit anything, this deck is staying tier 1 like forever, right? Like, or not forever, but until they actually hit stuff. But this deck's really strong right now, probably on par with Cash, really consistent and really solid. Can play into a lot of hand traps too. Your opponent max C's, like this deck plays through max C super easily, so pretty nice. It does get absolutely bodied by Droll though. I will say that. One of the most painful decks to get drolled on. Labyrinth, I'm going to say Labyrinth is like tier 2. Me, I think I'm feeling solid, like top of tier 2 here. The deck's like full power. Like nothing hit on it. Everything's like maxed out. You still have Eradicator Virus. You still have like all these good one-ofs like D-Barrier. D-Barrier is really strong into the cash cards. They can't go into their right side. But the thing is, like the cash cards on its own, not bad. But yeah, this deck's really good, especially if it goes first. Going second, still not that bad. It's one of the only trap decks that actually plays pretty well going second. So yeah, I'm pretty confident putting it tier 2. Flow, I'm going to put this Rat League. I thought this deck would actually get a little better with the cashier cards getting way better, but I barely see this on ladder. And honestly, when I do see it on ladder, unless they open like cracked, like I always feel like I could win against them. So yeah, I feel pretty positive putting them in the Rat League. And until they get like consistency hits, like buffs, where they start putting out like especially the field spell. Field spell being at 1 is terrible. Man, it is so bad. Once they hit the field spell, it feels so bad to the deck. Because like one Ash just does you in. It has an issue, similar issue to like Branded. Like one interrupt, you're fucked. The good thing is this deck can naturally play like Book of Moons and stuff, so but yeah, I'm gonna still put it in the Rat League. I don't have enough data to be honest, like me playing against it, to be like, oh, is this deck good now? Because it just doesn't feel that good. If it was doing good, I feel like I would see a lot more. Exo Sisters. Now you guys might have seen a cut. I'm doing a deep ponder in Exo Sisters. I don't know if I want to put it in Rat League or tier 3. I'm gonna say that with decks not being that like graveyard focused anymore, I feel like it's not like if it's tier 3, it's like bottom of tier 3, because they can't abuse the fact that like Vadis being so strong or anything, because a lot of these cards aren't like doing anything with the graveyards anymore. But you can argue that like Cash sometimes banishes things in their own graveyards, but a lot of those effects are quick effects. So you could technically chain, like if I activate Vadis, you can chain it to it, like Scareclaw or something like that, Scareclaw Cash. So I don't know. Like I feel like this could probably belong in the Rat League, but banishing 4 cards is still pretty good. It's still pretty good interrupt. And being on the play, they feel pretty good. Playing on the draw though, I feel like their big weakness. Because like you set up full Pearly board, I feel like this deck does nothing. Like you just spin everything back and it's GG. So yeah, this is a tough one. I really do think the Exo Sisters one's a tough one. But I'd probably feel more comfortable. Maybe we put it in Rat League. I'm gonna put it in Rat League, top of Rat League. Sprite, I think Sprite's solid tier 3 right now. The Gishki cards did help it a lot, the Gishki Sprite. But I don't think it's good enough to like do their cards are way too limited. Like everything's like limited to 1 or banned, or like all their support, like their good supports like adios, you know what I mean? But I do think their end board they can put up is still pretty strong. You can climb ladder pretty easily with it. I think you could still hit Master 1 like pretty well with it. So I think that's what matters when it comes down to it. So yeah, I feel comfortable putting tier 3. Is it before or after Sky Striker? It's negligible. I'm not really 100% sure. I'll put it before, but like I feel like this might actually. I feel like Sky Striker might be better. I'll put Sky Striker first. It's better. Now we got Runic. Now, I'm just going to take this as pure Runic because we have Nitoria here. I think the Runic package in general is not the greatest at the moment. I thought this was going to be a lot better. But with cash cards, with the Macrocosmos effect, if they go first, it's just like, it feels like a GG, unless you have a way of interrupting the Arise Heart, right? The Macrocosmos effect just absolutely neuters this deck. So I'm going to put this in the Rat League. This is an engine, as the Runic engine. But it's really hard to tell, to be completely honest. Because, like, I feel like it's not bad, especially when it's paired with Nitoria, and we'll talk about that in a few decks. But it definitely has some major weaknesses there. Mathmech. Yeah, I'm very comfortable putting this in tier 3. I think it's really solid right now. I already said, if you guys watched my video on decks to play in the tier meta, I said Mathmech could be a very good choice because they could play through a lot. They do still have an issue against Macrocosmos, but they can play like in archetype, like not in archetype, but like they play Small World and stuff like that. So they could search for Kaijus, like they can fit Kaijus very easily because they don't really need their normal summon that much. I mean, they kind of do for diameter summon, but it's not the end of the world. They can search out. The biggest thing is they can play Small World and they can play around that way. But overall, I would say the archetype is pretty good. I mean, I think it's like a solid tier 3. You can climb Master 1 easy with it. So, Makonko, I'm going to put Makonko, again, tier 3. The problem with Makonko right now, I think the biggest problem, it's good, obviously, really good blind second deck. But one issue. People know what the deck does now. People know what the deck does, and that's a big issue. People know what cards to hit. That was weird. People know what cards to hit. They know what's weak in the deck or what to hit to interrupt so you don't get OTK'd, and then they can just play out of it. Back when this deck first came out, like nobody knew what to hit. A lot of the players didn't know what to hit, so it was just like going under the radar, and then people were just getting OTK left and right. And this deck still does OTK very easily, but it's not like broken. It's definitely, you could definitely play through it. Nitoria! So Nitoria, I actually still like at tier 3. Like, I feel like Nitoria Runic, like even though I kind of roasted Runic a little, Nitoria Runic feels like the only good Runic deck. I feel like the other Runic decks feel like shit. But this one still feels actually pretty solid, and I think it gets carried a bit by the Nitoria cards. They just really good interrupts, and you can play through a lot, and setting up like multiple negates, like it's kind of hard to deal with. If you're able to set up a beast with like Mole Cricket or like Camilla Mole Cricket or something like that, you're in very good shape because it's going to be very hard for your opponent to out it with the Runic cards attached to it. So when I say Nitoria, I'm specifically talking about like Nitoria Runic. But yeah, the Nitoria package is still really strong, I think. Really good. I still think it's a tier 3. You can definitely climb with the deck. Only issue I would say is, again, like Macrocosmos going second does not feel good. So you better hope you open some of those board breaks. But I feel like a lot of these decks are kind of like that. You kind of have to rely on that, right? All right, now we're up to Punk, and I think Punk could probably go in tier 3 as well. And you're gonna notice a lot of decks going into tier 3, okay? Because tier 3 is just like the meta, like average decks. Like they're good and they're a bit above average, and then you got Rat League that's like either below average or super average, right? And then tier 2 is like really, really good. And then tier 1 is like clearly the best decks. And I feel like Punk, because a lot of people, they're not really just playing Punk, they're playing Punk Cash. So the deck's automatically going to be pretty good. Honestly, that's probably the reason why it's on this tier list to begin with. Otherwise, it might be in the Rat League. But it just works really well with the cash stack cards. And on top of that, it's still like a really splashable archetype you can throw in a lot of decks. Like any deck that could require like a level 8 Synchro Summon, like Chaos Ruler or something. Rescue Ace. So this deck's Rat League. When it gets all its support with like the Snake Eyes stuff and all that stuff, it's probably going to be up here. It's going to be a really strong deck. But right now, it's not good. And if you watched my video on it, you know that I thought it was just like an average deck. The greatest thing about it is like it does +4 off one card, but the consistency issue on it is like its biggest problem. So once it gets like those consistency boosters, I can definitely see it jumping up tier 3, maybe even tier 2. It'll be a strong deck, but not right now. Rika, I definitely think is a tier 3 deck. It's not many people play it. You won't see it on ladder that much. But the people who do play it, you're going to be afraid when they do their board, because their board's very scary to deal with. And they set up like 6 interrupts. So, yeah. And they can actually play through a lot, too. Like, if you ash them once, they could still technically like combo and end on like 3 or 4 interrupts. Which is pretty annoying, considering if you interrupt them once, that means they have 4 interrupts for your 4 or 5 cards. You know what I mean? So, Rika, still really good. Really solid. I'd still put it at tier 3. Again, it's really hard to get the tier 1, tier 2 spots, so don't feel too bad about it. Scareclaw, I'm sold on this. Scareclaw is going to mark my words on this right now. Scareclaw is going to be tier 1 in tournament soon, or maybe high tier 2. I might be on crack, but I've been testing this deck because I'm going to do it for a video soon. And this deck seems cracked. It seems really good. And if they open their nuts, they end on a much, much, much better board than regular cash. So, like, their end board will be like the Link 3 boss monster with like full cash end board, with like Twin Saw, which is like a pop 2, with like, it's really, really good. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna put this particular archetype. I'm definitely very happy to put it at tier 1, and like I said, it might be high tier 2. I think it's tier 1 though. It's really, really good. Dragon Link belongs in tier 3 somewhere. It's still a really good deck, but gets absolutely fucked by Macrocosmos and gets like scolded by D-Shifter. The good thing is not many people playing D-Shifter still, but yeah, it does get absolutely reamed by the card. But yeah, so it's tier 3 right now just because, like, think about that, how good D-Link is. Like, it's tier 3 in a meta where Cash Tira is, like, the best deck, right? Like, a card that can, like, that has a Macrocosmos attached to it, it's still, like, tier 3. That's really solid, in my opinion. So, yeah, you might have to play some more, like, ways of, like, breaking at least, like, the Macrocosmos effect. I think you could play around every other card they have, though. Sword Soul, again, I think it's like low tier 3. I think it's low tier 3. Or like maybe like mid tier, probably like low mid. It's like a good deck. Sword Soul is like one of those decks that's like never bad, but it's never like tier 1. Or it used to be tier 1 like a year and a half ago, maybe. Or a year and like a few months ago. But it's like one of those decks that's like just really like just a solid deck. So like this was a great investment. If you invested in Sword Soul when it first dropped, that was a well worth investment because it's still like a good deck after like over a year time. You can definitely climb tier 1 with it. And the fun thing about Sword Soul is there's so many different variants of it. You can play with Yang Zing. There's a lot of different stuff you can do with the deck. And each one of those different variations of the deck, you can end on like some pretty cracked boards. And the deck still has Protoss, which is a busted card. I don't know why I have it. They banned Calamity, but Protoss is fine apparently. But yeah, the deck's really, really solid still. Tier 3 is good. Tier limit? I'm not gonna lie. I thought this would be in the Rat League. But dude, these people just want these cards to thrive, dude. I don't know what it is. It has been doing like, it's weird because I never play against it in ladder, but when I was doing research on like at least like on the tournaments and stuff, like it's been performing like relatively well. Like people do not want this deck to die, so I'm throwing it like on the bottom of tier 3, but it could be better than bottom tier 3. It definitely could be like way better than that. But it seems like a really solid deck still. Surprisingly, they're playing with they are playing. I will say this: they are playing with Kashtira cards now, and I think that's part of the reason why they're still living. Because otherwise, I do not know how they're living. But yeah, this is a deck that just does not want to die. Doesn't matter if they ban half your deck and limit all your cards to one besides the URs. Thanks Konami, by the way, for that. Don't you love it? Don't you love that Konami? They just banned and limit to one every single normal card in the deck, but all the URs are staying at like 3 or 2. Isn't that awesome? So happy I get to keep my 3 Rhino Hearts. Super grateful for it. Real cool. So yeah, this is tier limit. And you know what? I'm going to be completely honest. I don't think the deck's that bad right now, that big of an issue. I actually would love it if they would ban, like they would limit Rhino Heart to 2 or something like that, and like put Merly back. I know they would have like the sprint play and stuff like that, but like it's a little tilting how they just like they got rid of all the normal cards and then they left you with all the URs. And it makes me think that's going to happen with some of these decks too. So I hope you guys are looking forward to that. And now Trap Tricks. I'm gonna throw in the Rat League. I mean, the deck's all right. You can definitely like, and just because the deck's in the Rat League does not mean you can't master win with it. It just means that these decks are harder to hit master 1, and they're not as competitive as the decks above for the current meta. And a lot of that has to do with these top 3 decks, or at least these top 2, because the Cashier cards are really strong and the Pearly cards are really strong. And if these cards have like not the best matchups into it, you're gonna have a rough time. So hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know. I know I didn't have all the decks here, but this video is already like 20 plus minutes, or like getting close to 20 minutes. I don't know how long it will be after I edit it. Right now it says 24 minutes of raw footage, but I'm probably gonna have to cut a bunch of me just pausing to scratch my ass and shit. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know what you guys think down below. Remember, if you guys disagree with me, go for it. But this is what I personally think from me playing the game, you know. I probably could have been more aggressive with throwing some tier 2 cards and more tier 2s. But I really don't think anything is like up into this echelon. I really don't. But yeah. Alright, let me know what you guys want to see next. And I'm probably going to do either Scare Clock Cash in the next video. So look forward to that. And goodbye.